When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
All right, listeners, welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, as always, Colleen Biggs. And we're so thankful that you come back week after week as we bring brilliant experts to this stage for them to be able to share wisdom and nuggets of all the different subjects that we discuss so that you as an individual can design your life the way you want your life to play out. So life is happening for you and not to you. And we have another brilliant subject today about business building through books. So if you've been wanting to be an author, if you are an author, we're going to be talking a lot about the marketing side of it, opportunities that are available for you, how you can get started on writing your own book. And Mindy Scarlett is here to have that conversation with us. But before we get to Mindy, I want to make sure that I thank our sponsor of today's show, which is Ally Spine Center. What sets their office apart from other offices is their focus and expertise in treating degenerative spinal conditions, including disc disease, bulging and herniated discs, spinal stenosis, neuropathy, sciatica, pain, tingling, and numbness in the arms and hands, legs, and feet, as well as severe and chronic neck pain and headaches. They specialize in corrective care, not just the treatment of symptoms with physical medicine modalities. So in many cases, they do pre and post images. They use them to determine the structural improvement of the spine. You can reach Ally Spine Center at 480-809-4700 and be sure to visit them at allyspinecenter.com. Thank you so much, Ally Spine Center, for being our sponsor of today's show. Now, if all of you are wanting to see this video and you're listening through your podcast, again, remember, you can go follow me at Colleen Biggs on Facebook. I've got the blue shirt on, and my family is a huge family in the background there. Please go follow us and you'll be able to see more of today's show there. So Mindy began her professional career when she married her writing professor and immigrated to Australia sight unseen. Well, I mean, might not be that bad, right? Writing, editing, and marketing were the areas that she concentrated on until her marriage blew up and she decided to return to the US of A at the age of 30 and started over in every sense of the word. How many of us have started over, and had to rebuild again? So I think you're touching a few hearts right now, Mindy, with that. So today, Mindy provides a done for you, done with you workshop and anthology as the 4 ways that professionals can get across the finish line of being a best-selling author as a way to support and market their business. So Mindy, you're going to tell us more about this, but welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
It's so good to have you here. I met Mindy several months ago. It hasn't been that long, several months ago. And she has just been an advocate for the LEAP community since the day it started. And Mindy, we're so happy to have you as a member of the LEAP community because you understand how important visibility is, collaborating with other people, and leveraging modalities and things that we have, such as books, in our business. When I first became an entrepreneur, everyone said, you got to write a book. I was like, why do I have to write a book? I've never written a book before. But why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background and why books are so important for us as experts?
Okay. Well, the first, I always put my title out there as being publisher, ghostwriter, and branding expert. And then people kind of go, when they hear the branding expert, because you don't usually hear that in the same sentence with the first 2 words.
Yeah.
And then I do that deliberately to get people to stop and say, hang on a minute, back up the train. What does that mean? Back in 2015 was when I started doing Amazon bestselling books for my clients. Had a full service marketing agency, did everything from, building out social media to building websites, and saw the trend of people becoming best-selling authors as a way to shine a light on their business. So I thought, great, I'll create a new business line and supply this to my clients. And it's a wonderful way to shine a light on your brand. But then I also found a few tripwires. Like somebody would come and their brand would be very messy and very unclear who their audience was. And I had to kind of stop and play mama bear and shake my finger at them and say, okay, love to write a book for you, but you kind of need to tidy this up. Why should we shine a light on a messy room?
Right.
So
it's like selling your house and not making the beds, right, and just having clothes and food and dishes everywhere. Yeah.
And so I always tell my clients, this is not about writing War and Peace. This is not about writing your memoirs. This is about building a unique marketing tool.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep that in mind. Should everybody do it? Short answer is no. So it's like, okay, first of all, should you write a book? Well, there's not an easy answer to that. You have to analyze your business, analyze what your plans are. And I always say to them, what's the end game?
Yeah.
And how is this book going to get you, several steps in the door towards that end game?
Yeah. Well, let's use as examples. Someone says, well, I want to be able to get on more local TV stations on subjects that they're discussing that I feel like I'm an expert and can have a conversation with them about. That would be a good reason why you would want to have a book, because if you have a book, it opens up more doors for publicity and media, like being on TV, because they want to discuss your book. And that's how you can bring out what products you have, how you serve others, and why you wrote the book, right? So that's an example of what Mindy's talking about. Go ahead, Mindy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the people that I tend to concentrate on who absolutely need to have a book are, coaches, consultants, speakers, thought leaders. Those four are front and center. To answer that question is absolutely yes. You have to have a book. And then I also point out to them that it's kind of like, think about the professor who's going for tenure at a university, and they're expected to publish papers and be an expert. But they can't just publish one paper, say, I'm an expert, and then kind of, okay, I'm done with writing articles.
Right.
So it's like, okay, once you push the boat out, you have to remember certain things. Number one, my team will help with pushing it out, starting the marketing, but then you need to learn how to paddle.
Yeah.
You need to see it as not a magic wand, but as a marketing tool that has to be woven into your overall marketing program. So there has to be a plan, there has to be an end, and it has to start with analyzing your brand. What book should you write? And trust me, I have people flying through my office door saying, I want to write book A. And it's like, okay, sit down, let's have a bit of a talk, let's, get into it.
Yeah.
And then I say to them, okay, you want to write book A, but I'm looking at your brand and looking at your end game and looking what you want to do. And you really should write book B. That's going to get you further down the trail.
That's great.
So you have to first ask the question, should I write a book? Answer yes or no. Then you have to see, what should I write? What part of your expertise should you shine a light on?
Yeah.
How are you going to put it into your marketing program? And what's the ultimate end game? Are you going to be a speaker and sell it at the back of the room? Are you going to give it away as a lead generation? Mm-hmm. There has to be a plan, because you have to. It's like when I had a marketing agency, I would always tell my clients, if you can't measure it, don't do it. So if you don't have a plan with your book, you can't know if you're accomplishing anything or not.
Right. Yeah, I'll use an example. One of my clients, when we were thinking of a title for her book, when she was first writing her book, we had decided on Stop Waiting, Start Living. And that's Julie Jones. And the reason why she did that was because I said, you have to be consistent with your brand. And so her next event was Stop Waiting, Start Living. Her TV show that she produces is Stop Waiting, Start Living. She has consistency of her brand, and her messaging is very consistent through her book, to her events, to her podcast, to her TV show. And I did the same, right? My My book is Step into the Spotlight to expand your influence to attract the right clients. Everything I do in my coaching is expanding the influence of my clients so they attract the right clients. So I teach how to attract your right clients. And my Leap community is the same thing. It's about being in the spotlight. It's about utilizing platforms for being visible and being heard. So I love that you said that, Mindy, because I believe consistency is key. And if you are a speaker listening to this or want to become a speaker and you're looking to get into that arena, then I'll tell you this, having a book is key. Every time I speak, people want my book. And I always have them readily available and have to pack them in my suitcase, whenever I fly somewhere to speak. But here's the thing. How many speakers have you seen on stage that said something that was great or motivated you or whatever, and then they're done and you're like, and how do I get more of this person? Where do I go? What do I do? Yeah. You're kind of left hanging, right? Yeah. And I love what you're saying, because now having a book, we're not left hanging, and you can use this as a digital business card. You can send it to new prospective clients so they can read more about you. You can send it as a gift to someone. There's so much. You can sell them online, sell them on your website, send anyone there that wants to know more about you, for whatever books you're in. There's even anthology books out there, right? So anthologies are great first steps. Yeah. Go ahead, Mindy. Let's talk about anthology.
That is my soapbox.
A lot of people don't know much about an anthology. When I heard the word the first time, I didn't know what it was. Well, when they said a compilation book, it made a little bit more sense to me. But I was struggling with, I don't know what that was. I had just come out of corporate America. I was like, what is that? And that was my first experience of becoming an author, was that very first book that I collaborated with. So talk about that a little bit, Mindy.
Okay, that's a bit of a trigger point with me because it's a trend. A lot of people, a lot of publishers are out there doing it. The challenge is they're coming at it from strictly a publishing point of view. They're not coming at it from a marketing or a branding point of view. And I'm sorry, if you're in a book with 50 other people, that's a business directory. That's not an anthology.
That's right.
So I think I mentioned this before, that Lil Barkowski and I met in the Leap community, and we have decided to launch a new company called Center of Influence Publishing that is built around the concept of doing anthologies, but with a huge difference, because we will only ever do 10 people in the book or less. Because 10 people is what Amazon will list as authors of the book. All 10 people can have their name on the front and have the SEO search ability. Put your name in, guess what? This book pops up. If you're one of 50, you get lost in the sauce. So I actually just posted my blog today that said, ask these questions if someone asks you to be in an anthology, to make sure it's going to do something for your business.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. Is that blog on LinkedIn? Did you put it on LinkedIn?
I did this morning.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys can find Mindy at Mindy Scarlett at LinkedIn. And like I said, if you want to see who she is, so you can identify her, go over to my Facebook page at Colleen Biggs. But I think you're right. Very right about that. I've had several books. There was 10. And so we limited it so that they could have their names on Amazon. I promoted them. We did a huge promotional. It was a very well drawn out plan of promotion. It was a very well drawn out plan about now what do you do, from inception to the launch to now you have your books in your hand. What do you do now, right? Now that you have your books, what are your opportunities? And I think educating someone that's not an author or has never done their own book, they think to themselves, great, I'm in this book. How do I use this book to market myself? That's the biggest question I get for someone that's in an anthology or in a compilation book, because they're like, my name's not on the front. I didn't do this book. And there are so many individuals out there that will have the covers created in books where your name's on the front. So instead of just having the author's name, you can have it printed with your name on the front. And so every book that you hand out has your name on the front of the cover and not anyone else's. So that's an option, for publishers to be able to do that.
Yeah, but it's a half-hearted option, because if your name isn't connected to it on Amazon, then you don't get any SEO juice out of it.
Yeah.
So it has limited value. And this is what I have to really concentrate on, keeping it nice and keeping it diplomatic, because this is a hot button for me. Because publishers go out there, get 50 people in the book. They might only be charging $9.95 a person. Everybody's thinking, oh, I got a cheap anthology. Well, it's not about the money. It's about the value. Mm-hmm. What value do you get out of it? And the challenge is, everybody thinks the title best-selling author is a magic wand and everything's going to be honky-dory. It's only the first step in a journey, and you've got to know what step 2, 3, 4, and 5 are in order for that to do you any good. And I'm starting to lose count of the number of people who reach out to me, usually just in open networking, to say, oh, I was in a compilation book 6 months ago and it did absolutely nothing for my business. And then I'll usually invite them to come have a chat with me, and then I'll get the context, and then I'll explain to them, maybe you should have done this, this, and this, but going forward, this is now how you can, utilize it. But unfortunately, if you're already in a compilation with 25 other people, the damage is already done.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least you're giving them advice at this point on how they can utilize that book to still market themselves and provide value, because that's why they did the chapter, right? Was to provide value to the reader. So there's a way that they can still provide that value and market. So I love that you have those services available for individuals to be able to.
It's about the education at the front end and setting expectations.
Yeah.
That's like paramountly important.
Yeah.
Because it hurts my heart when I talk to people where publishers have sold them a bill of goods about, oh yeah, become a best-selling author. That's wonderful for your business. Then they're standing there in the middle of the road after the book is launched saying, okay, now what do I do?
Right.
And with no help and no support from the publisher, they've vanished and gone on to the next compilation book and their next influx of revenue. So that's kind of a trigger point with me, and I kind of have to bite my lip and keep it nice.
No, I think you don't need to. You absolutely have permission to speak up on that. And I think you need to speak up more on that, because there are so many people that are falling into that trap, I guess I would say. And again, I've been in other compilation books. Most of them were under 10 or under that I was in. My very first one wasn't. I think we probably had 20 in that very first one. We had a big launch party. I flew back and then the country shut down. We had an in-person launch party in St. Louis, and then I flew back home and everything shut down. It was crazy. But we got a lot of exposure for that book and a lot of continuous guidance and exposure, which was nice. But you're right. I've even been in books before where they never listed any of the other authors, and it was only the author who compiled the book's name was listed. And that doesn't help me at all. You're right. And then, it's one of those things where I can say I've been a best-selling author in 7 books. That might sound great to someone, reading your bio, but I'm not making any money off of that. And I'm not really promoting that book much, right? And it's not helping me on SEO online, like you said. So I think it is very important.
It creates credibility issues, because then someone goes and tries to Google you as a best-selling author and you don't show up. Then they think you're telling fairy stories.
Yeah.
So, that credibility and being able to connect everything is important, because for your credibility online, they don't need to have, before they've gotten to know you and decided to do business with you, they don't need to have doubts sown about your credibility.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree on that. So we are definitely aligned on that, and how those and the branding is so important. So when someone's looking to write a book, and I know you've got some workshops coming up, we'll talk about those in a minute. When someone's looking to write a book, they get a little nervous and they're like, how can I write a book if I don't know how to write? Like, I read books and they're great, but I don't know how to write a book. So I know you have done for you, done with you, you have workshops. You have talked to us a little bit about why you've decided, after being in marketing for all those years, taking that knowledge now and applying it into books for entrepreneurs. The done for you and done with you. Talk a little bit through that so everyone knows what that is.
Well, the done for you is the full ghostwriting experience. And basically, I just interview the person to extract, because it's still their information, it's still in their voice, but I'll interview them, extract the information, write the rough draft. Then I'll circle back and say, okay, we're in chapter 1. You make this point here. Now you need to cough up a story to illustrate that. Because I always want it to be storytelling, entertaining, engaging. I don't want it to sound like a textbook.
Yeah.
And then I'll take them through and say, okay, well, you said this. Guess what? Simon Sinek says the same thing. And everybody knows who Simon Sinek is. So let's put a quote from him in here to give what you're saying more credibility and credence. So I provide all those services. So somebody who has a busy coaching practice, they want to do a book, they don't have the time to sit down and write it, they can talk to me once a week. Well, we can get it done. And then my partner Lil handles all the publishing end of it. So it's like seamless from soup to nuts.
I bet that there's a lot of people out there that don't realize how many books are ghostwritten.
Yeah.
I mean, really, a lot of books are ghostwritten. You think because the author's name's on the front that they wrote that book, but most of the time they don't sit down and write it. There'll be an interview, just like Mindy said, and then someone who is an amazing writer writes in their voice and writes the stories and so on and so forth. Even if it's someone that is a celebrity that you know really well, that is reading their book, right, on Audible off of Amazon, probably they might not have written that book. It might have been ghostwritten, right? So I'm just throwing that out there because I don't know if people realize I don't know if they think that everyone who writes a book is brilliant in writing and that's the person that wrote the book. And it's not always the person that wrote the book is the person's name, as the author of the book. So, and then the done with you. So how do you do the done with you?
The done with you follows the same format, but person writes the initial rough draft of each chapter. And then it goes through the rest of the process with me helping them with the research, the final editing, and then the full publishing package. So it just depends on how someone thinks, how they work, and whether or not they have the time and the writing skills to write the first draft. And then obviously from a price point of view, that's less of my time. So that's not as expensive as the full concierge version. Right. So we just have to look at, because everything that you get done professionally is a function of time and budget.
Yeah.
So figure out how much time can you as an individual devote to this project and how much money can you? And then you have to come up with a combination of the two that works. And it's different for every business owner. Yeah. And so I'll get creative. I'll work with them over time. It's just I'll create a payment plan for them that works for them in a time frame that works for them. So I get very flexible with that because I get it, especially if you're a solopreneur. You don't always have the entire budget to lay on the counter and say, I want that. So I always work with people on that to figure those things out.
I love that. So tell me, with all these new changes that you have going on, because you've come from the marketing background, you've had some changes with COVID and everything that happened in your business, and you just reemerged, as really looking at wanting to bring your marketing together with the ghostwriting and the books and doing workshops now, which I think is brilliant, especially in the space, of entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs that I work with. What's next?
Well, Lil and I are about ready to whip the sheet off the new company, which is Center of Influence Publishing and Center of Influence Community. So we are creating a central community you don't have to be an author. You can just come hang out if you're a coach or a consultant or a speaker or a thought leader. And we want to have an entire community that supports them. And then once they do become an author or they become an author as part of one of our anthologies, they get an author page on the site. We've got a whole bunch of plans. So give us about 30 days to finish cooking that before we roll it out there. But in the meantime, we already have 3 anthologies on the boards right now.
Wow.
So if you would like to be an anthology, see, this is the cool thing because it's a very low entry point. It's only $3,500 to get into the anthology. And
that's soup to nuts. We give you a marketing package. We give you everything. It's only going to be 10 authors. So for $3,500, you can become a best-selling author, create a tool that will truly help your company and truly be found in terms of SEO searches and all of that. Plus, we give you the marketing support, but we also set the expectations. We're helping you push the boat out to market your book, but then you need to learn how to paddle.
That's right.
You can't
or you're just going to be dead in the water. Sorry, that was a pun, but you are. You'll be dead in the water, really. You will have spent the money, and it will not come back to you or do anything for you. And that's just where you land. So I know that, and I'm super excited that the Leap community brought you and Lil together, that you're doing this now, that you have access to women who want to write books, who are interested in anthologies. That's why the Leap community was created, so we could all build our businesses together in the community and get the exposure that we need. So where's the best place for them to connect with you? Do you have a workshop coming up? I know today we're on, the 1st of February recording, but the release now we're in March for someone listening on the podcast. So what do you have coming up? And is LinkedIn the best way for them to connect with you through message, like a direct message, or Facebook?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best. That's the pond that I play in the most. I do post a few things on Facebook, but my community is in LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's usually where all the coaches and consultants hang out. So that's where
all right, great. So find Mindy Scarlett on LinkedIn. I have her Linktree link posted for all of you. So that is available. And I'm sure by the time you click on that and are listening to this, she will have all the information of the new company and how you can get involved and how you can join their community. It's super, super exciting. And I love to see more and more women creating more communities out there. I think it's important that we focus on connection. I just want everyone to focus on connection this year. We are drowning in content. Let's focus on connecting with each other. When you write a book, you connect with the reader. Right? You're giving the reader something to connect with, something to hold on to, something to learn from. So let's focus on spending more time together, connecting with the people that are already around us, and utilizing that going into this new year in 2023. Maybe we need to slow it down a little. Everyone's had their foot on the pedal for quite some time. So think about how you can connect deeper.
Yeah. The networking is all about keeping yourself open and giving before you get. Because if Lil and I had just looked at the surface, we would have said, oh, she's a competitor. I'm not going to go talk to her. But, I found out she was in Tampa. We were drivable. We ended up in December going and having lunch together in Lakeland because that was the halfway point. Decided that we really liked each other, that we were essentially two halves of a whole. She's a publisher who has to ghostwrite because she has to. I'm a ghostwriter who has to publish because she has to. And we're like, oh my God, we're two halves of a whole. We need to get together and do something. And then over the course of several conversations, the whole concept of center of influence anthologies came out in response to what we saw in the market. And the poorly applied, 95% of them are poorly done or not done to be a marketing tool. And so we just saw that need out there and thought, you know what? We're going to bring this to market because it's what's needed.
I love it. It's beautiful. Well, Mindy, thank you so much for being on our show today. Today was all about business building through books. So I hope you learned something new about where you can go from now if you do have a chapter in an anthology book. If you aren't an author and want to write your own book or are scared to and want to have it written for you, you can contact Mindy Scarlett at LinkedIn. Just go over to LinkedIn and you'll find her there. Books are part of my life. I have so many bookcases full of books. It's knowledge, everyone. It is. I love reading. Every morning I read. We have a book club in the Leap community because it's about development, and I utilize books for personal development. Many people use books as an escape to read a fictional book or something fun like that, right? And they love to read stories. When our children are born, we read to them. At what point did adults just stop reading books? And I've met so many adults that say, I don't have time to read. Take time to read this year. take some time to read every morning. There are very specific steps that those that are extremely successful take. Meditation's one of them. Working out is one of them. Reading and educating themselves is a huge one. So if you're not reading, maybe ask yourself, maybe I should be reading, and then I'll become a little bit more successful. So I love talking about this subject today, Mindy. Thank you so much for being our guest. And I want to remind all of you, you're the only you that's ever been, and you are the only you that will ever be. So whatever book you write is going to be unique to your unique fingerprint of who you are. No one can write a book like you. No one has your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your skill sets. Nobody out there. So never be afraid or fearful to put it all out there in a book or a workbook or teach what it is that you love. Never be afraid to do that, because someone is waiting right now that needs that information, and they can only hear it from you. So Mindy, thanks again for being on our show. To everyone that was here today, thank you for joining us. And until next time, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.